Hey guys, welcome back to CHARLA Football. I'm your host, Jerry Gerardo Tavares, alongside my great host over here, Tomas Estrada. How you doing, Tomas?
Good. How are yourself?
Good, good. It's Friday, so I'm excited for the weekend. A lot of football to be played this weekend, but something that we have to cover this week, and probably one of the most important tournaments in all of North America, is the Concacaf Champions League. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to wrap up all the games that happened throughout the past few weeks. And then in a different segment, we will also be giving our predictions. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, we're going to talk about the differences between MLS, Liga MX sides, obviously the games itself, and then a little bit of controversy that has Twitter and some media outlets talking about um, MLS and some of these owners. But anyways, how about we move forward right into it? Let's talk about MLS and Liga MX to start off. What do you think?
I mean, the results speak for themselves. Just MLS in the head-to-head with Liga MX, they have not won one game. I mean, I think it's 5 wins for Liga MX and 3 ties.
Hmm.
You're, you guys can fact check me on that, but that just looks terrible for MLS. Especially after this League's Cup. Sorry, people were saying that MLS had surpassed Liga MX, and I just don't see in what way, shape, or form they have. They defend worse. Their midfield is less creative. This all across the board. I'm not just bashing any team. I'm not just saying one team. Just across the board as a league, it just looks less creative, and they just look less in sync. I don't even know what I can say that's good about them. Maybe that athletically they look like they're able to run with the intensity, but just technically and I just don't know. I just don't know where to get started on what went wrong.
Yeah, but you can't deny, I mean, that MLS is very attractive, at least if you're an outsider. I mean, definitely MXs have brought in some attractive prospects as well from outside of in South America. Some interesting players from Europe too. You got Sergio Canales going into Liga MX, Andre Pierre Guignac, who in his time in Marseille, in his prime at Marseille, came over here to North America, which was interesting in its time. But now we see a lot of players going to MLS, so that's I think where MLS is starting to, I guess, grow interest. A lot of people are starting to pay attention to that. But overall in quality, you're starting to you do notice it because there was a lot of controversy behind playing the Leagues Cup because those games between the MX teams and the MLS teams were only played in U.S. soil. So a lot of people were saying like, where is that fair for the Mexican sides where they have obviously an advantage in their home soil, and then we're seeing that now, and one of the first games that we have to highlight is the Tigres Orlando game where Tigres thrashed Orlando.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I we talked about this before the matchups even happened. I told you that we talked about this with the Inter Miami result versus Orlando, and it's just looking into that result. I told you that Tigres were beating them in any shape or form, and then that reflects. Obviously, the score reflects that, but just the whole game, Orlando didn't really have any solid attacks. I mean, if you look at it, the two goals come from penalties. The first penalty being, I guess, soft penalty, really just to maybe spice up the game from the ref side. But the second penalty is a penalty. It's shot straight, his hands out, penalty. But it was just lacking in being able to create Tigres, which is hard. I know even Liga MX sides have difficulty, building up there, but it just looked poor, like a
Yeah,
poor.
when
I
you're
mean,
when you're playing over there in El Volcan, that's what Tigres Stadium is called. I mean, not a lot of not a lot of teams find it easy. It's really not an easy place to play in because it's such a. I mean, it's a huge stadium, first off, and they almost always sell it out, or it's extremely full to its core, and it's one of the most vibrant stadiums in most of Mexico. So
yeah, I mean, it was just practically near impossible for Orlando to advance with everything against them. But then you see the game happening, and as the course of the game happens, Orlando just looked like they wanted to leave. Like after the 70 first 72nd minute, you want to see them leave. Luckily, they got Tigres ended up getting a red card, but Tigres still managed to score with 10 men. They scored a fourth goal. The score was 4-1 at that point with 10 men.
Mhm.
It's just like Orlando have a lot of work to do to be able to compete
Definitely.
into this competition. I'm not saying fire the manager. I'm not saying take anybody's heads off, but just as a team, you have a lot of work to do.
Orlando, I mean, they're struggling. A lot of people had them as an underdog or as one of the teams to be crowned MLS champs this year. I mean, you brought an interesting player in Luis Muriel, who's done pretty well over in Europe and Atalanta. And I mean, he's providing something different for the team for sure, but obviously it's not going to be enough. It's all about, I mean, soccer is about a whole collective. It's not just one individual. And I mean, yeah, the difference you see it between squads between Tigres and Orlando. Tigres is one of the highest paid has one of the highest paid squads in most of North America, I believe, and it's just been something historically, at least or yeah, historically recently that Tigres have been uh how do you want to I don't want to say they've just been
They
known for
they've been the best Mexican team in the past decade, for
yeah
sure.
even going to the Club World Cup final.
The only Mexican side to make it to what's it called, like a present format,
Mhm.
like the newer format. I think I don't know what team made it to a final, but yeah, that's crazy. I mean, in modern day football, for Tigres to make it to a Club World Cup final is deserves his recognition, applause. And even with the controversial goal from I remember Lewandowski when he was at Bayern. But we're not gonna get into that, but I mean, Tigres is the best Mexican club in the past decade, and they're the biggest Mexican club in the past decade.
For sure,
And
for sure,
so, I mean, they're up there. They're the person that if you want to win this competition, you have to go to Tigres.
for sure. They're definitely one of the favorites. You can't deny that. Another favorite, possibly. I mean, how can you discard them? Is the reigning MLS champs, Columbus Crew. You can't. I mean, they're definitely they have to be up there. They came up against the reigning U.S. Open Cup champs. So this was a battle between champions right here. So you had the MLS Cup champs in Columbus Crew, and then the reigning U.S. Open Cup champs, Houston Dynamo. But in a game where historically between the two teams it's been pretty even, but overall we're seeing Columbus Crew kind of starting to take that step forward. Yeah, Houston Dynamo. I think last year they made it to the final in their conference. I think they had just lost
Yeah,
to LAFC 2-0,
yeah.
but now they're starting off slow, and you're seeing that they're missing that crucial piece, and that crucial piece has to be said. It's Hector Herrera. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
you know how crucial he's been for the national team, at least in his prime. Obviously, of recent years, that's a different story. But at least in his prime, he was definitely um, a popular player and was very much needed in a lot of the Mexican teams.
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, you remember that. I mean, he wins a gold medal, and then he skipped forward to his prime, which is for me starting. His start of his prime begins in that World Cup 2014, finding his way into that team, and just continuing through, going to big clubs like Porto, going to Atletico Madrid. I mean, he's a crucial player. He knows how to play. Maybe the years have made him a bit slower, but he still knows how to give you that. How do you say that stability in the midfield?
Yeah,
How to be that
definitely.
anchor, that
And
defensive
he's a
anchor.
leader. I mean, he's been a leader in most of the teams that he's played in. In Porto, he was a captain there, and he's a legend for Porto. I mean,
Yeah,
considered. And I mean, at Atletico, he was also. I mean, he gave his all. You saw in most of the games for Atletico, he always was a popular player, like within the teams, and he was consistently starting. He wasn't like a regular starter, but he had his minutes for sure.
he had
But
It was to the point where you could tell he was being used as more of a important game player.
mhm.
When he was needed, he was put in.
But unfortunately. Right now, he's out for an injury. He's probably not going to be back till April, and I think that's why the Houston Dynamo are suffering. I mean, I think they're like third to last place in their conference. I mean, keep in mind that they just started MLS, the season
Yeah.
just started, but I mean, a team that just came from their conference final to starting off so poorly. I mean, that doesn't look very good.
Yeah. I mean, the number one thing in this competition would be, in my opinion, depth, because you're playing your regular league and you're playing your Concacaf Champions League, and you're playing at least a game every 3 days. You have to be prepared for that. And you have to be able to have quality subs, quality players that are on your bench. A lot of these teams' benches are just they have a spectacular starting 11, and their benches just can't back that up. They can't
Mhm.
maintain the resort. They can't even maintain the momentum that the starting 11 put out. But I mean, obviously, Houston Dynamo reflects that with the missing of Hector Herrera. They're not able to find that stability in their lower in their lower midfield. But I mean, that's no disrespect to Columbus. They did it. They didn't play a uneven matchup because Houston Dynamo was missing a player. No, they played a strong Dynamo team and they went through.
Yeah, and I mean, someone that you have to also talk about on the part of Columbus Crew, and you have to give his praise to is Cucho Hernandez, who in the final for the MLS Cup when they played against LAFC, he was crucial, scoring one of the goals in the final. And I mean, he's coming up clutch. He hasn't skipped a beat in this new season, where I think he has contributed to 3 goals out of the 6 games played in all competitions. So I mean, he's looking pretty solid so far.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's a solid player. He shows up when he's needed.
I think he's a
Um,
player that embodies the Columbus Crew, especially like the way they've been shaping up in recent years. They're always fighting for the top, and I think they're going to be another threat both in Concacaf Champions League and in their league as well. But
we'll
now
see
they're going to
how.
be coming up. They're going to be coming up with Tigres side, so that's going to be an interesting game, I think.
I mean, from a player by player standpoint, it's Tigres.
Yeah,
From a intensity standpoint, is Tigres closing at home?
we're gonna have to fact check that, but I believe they're closing out.
So if they're closing at home, Tigres is advancing. I'm sorry. There's just no way you can. I don't even think Tigres may even lose away. They're just so defensively solid. They're so poised in the midfield. You have. I mean, they do have Carioca out because he did get that red. So we'll see who subs him in. Who subs in for him? Sorry, but I mean we're gonna have to see. Just two great teams getting head to head, and we're gonna have to see how it ends up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that matchup. Now moving forward to Pachuca. So I mean, this is where we're talking about the difference between MLS and Liga MX. I mean, there was another game between the Liga MX MLS side where it's just a humiliation um for Philadelphia in this case, where Pachuca just outplayed them in every facet of the game. 6-0. And I agree.
I mean, Pachuca just completely picked apart that Philadelphia team, and Pachuca is just one of those teams where they're. I think they're one of the top three winners of this competition, having 5 trophies.
Mhm.
So they're not a small. They're not a in Mexico. They're not a small club. They're a fairly great club in Mexico. And Philadelphia, I heard about the come up. I heard how they were coming into this. I think it was last season they ended up not the past season, but the season prior to that they ended up in the final against LAFC, and they looked to be able to prove great things, like they were going to be able to prove great things in this matchup, but they're just poor. It was just all around. I mean, physically they looked okay, but Pachuca just outplayed them in every sector. After that penalty, which was a word for Pachuca, I don't. It's just it felt like the game was lost already.
Hmm.
Philadelphia wasn't running as much, and maybe it's the altitude where they just weren't prepared for that. But if you're a professional athlete, you should be prepared to be able
Yeah,
to play at any stadium, to be able to at least compete. Because to this point, losing 6-0, the next step isn't beating the team, it's to be like, are we even able to compete with this team? Are we
100%.
even able to at least just intensity, just like things you could control? Okay, 6-0. You could say they're better technically than us. Okay, they're better. They have more talent. Okay, but some things you could always control is effort and intensity, and you see none of that.
Now, who's there to blame at that point? Is that going to be Jim Curtin's fault?
I mean, you could. I mean, look. Let's say, let's say any Liga MX club goes outside of Mexico, loses 6-0. That coach doesn't make it back.
Yeah, no,
That
definitely. I
coach is
think
fired
he's
on the spot.
in the airplane. He's fired.
In the airport, he's fired. They might even cancel his flight. He could stay there. And I just feel like that's all across the world. So if Philadelphia keeps Jim Curtin, he's gonna have to prove why he was kept for the job. Because I just don't see why you would keep a coach that would lose 6-0. Obviously, everything's not on the coach's fault. You know, the team has a decline. They lose intensity, they lose heart. And as a coach, you know, you can't teach hard, but you are the responsible because you pick the players that represent this club.
Mhm.
And as a Philadelphia fan, you just like, do these players represent you?
Yeah,
Like,
because
is
it's not the first time where they've, I mean, shown that they don't have like what it takes to be at the top. I mean, first here a few years back when they played against LAFC in the final, where they were just moments away from winning the game, but it's just those it's the balls that you need to really get yourself over and be the best.
I mean, yeah, it's just. I mean, this. I could name tons of players that have been able to do it, but at one point, you just need to stop living the fantasy and make it a reality. And
Mhm.
that's just what Philadelphia needs. Like Philadelphia, yes, you're a great club. Yes, you have the talent. Yes, you have, you know, fit players, strong players, players who can actually bring you to that next level and get you that championship, get you a continental championship. But some things you always need in this sport is heart,
Definitely.
and it just looked like you lacked that. And I'm sorry to any Philadelphia fan. You know, I don't know what it feels like to see my club lose 6-0, but if I did, I probably would. I wouldn't even know what to say.
I don't want the
I
coach's
wouldn't.
head. I don't want the
I
coach's
wouldn't
head.
even know who to. I mean, look, you could only blame the coach so far. Like I would say fire Jim Curtin because at the end of the day, he is the most responsible to implement a cultural value of what this club is.
Hmm.
You kind of have to fit that into the players' head, like you never give up, you just never stop running, you just never like something. I don't know what something culturally that you could just hang on to where you're like how is this team beating me 3-0? Like they are not better than me. It doesn't matter if they are, if they aren't. You just have to have that belief in that mental capacity to just keep going. But they just don't show it. They just don't. They're kind of done after the second goal. They go into that halftime and you're thinking, oh, maybe Philadelphia's gonna, get a goal and make this interesting. The Mexican commentators were definitely thinking that. They were saying that Pachuca had to kind of, not to lose their head, kind of stay compact in the back, let them come up. And I mean, Philadelphia does come up, but they just forget how to track back. They just
And that's where
completely,
they were completely exposed.
they were just completely exposed, and I mean, it's sad to see.
Yeah. Now, something that I think is commemorable from one of the teams that Pachuca is going to be facing against in the quarterfinals is Herediano, and a team that, I mean, they kind of did history is Robin Hood. So Herediano faced Robin Hood in their matchup, and I just thought it was interesting to see a Suriname team facing against a Costarricense team. So it's not often that you see games like this, but it's definitely things that you pay attention to because it's like You see different parts of the world um, being represented, and those are the things you want to see in football. It's the beautiful things. Is why we love football. So
For
A Robin Hood that if you do not know, they're the current champions of the Suranimis League, which is known as the SVB Erst Divisi. And correct me if I'm saying that wrong, but that's from what I had done my research. That's what I understood. A Robin Hood who had never lost in their last 6 home matches in their stadium. And also, I thought this was interesting. Their stadium only fits about probably 3,000 fans. And it was almost, I mean, I wouldn't say packed, but there was at least 1,000 fans in there. And they held their own. They extended their run to 7 home matches without defeat because they tied. They tied in the literal last minute of the game, but ultimately it wasn't enough. Herediano obviously have just a little bit more quality because the Costarricense league is just slightly better, and I think they're in first place right now, and they're currently Herediano with a 7 point gap between first and second. So they're comfortably they're comfortable, kind of comfortable in their league. So they're kind of put a little bit more pressure into their current situation at the Concacaf level. Because I'm sure, I mean, who doesn't want to book a spot in the Concacaf Champions League final? Because the winners of that final gets to play the Club World Cup, I think next year here in the States.
yeah, I mean, Herediano is a solid team. Costa Rica is probably the third best league in North America. I know that doesn't say much, comparing it to the whole continent of America because they'd probably be like in seventh or eighth. But looking at it, Costa Rica has Saprissa with 3 continental championships. So I mean, there's always a Costarricense team that takes out 1 or 2 big teams from either MLS or Liga MX, and
And
you
they
seen
did
the, you,
that.
you see that with Herediano taking out Toluca.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, a lot of people saw that coming. Toluca was probably, I don't want to say the favorites, but between that tie, Toluca. I mean, if you're a fan of Liga MX or you pay attention to football, you would have thought Toluca would have gotten past them, but that wasn't the case. Herediano showed that they deserve to be at the point that they're in right now, and maybe they got not one of the best sides, probably an easier matchup and an easier pathway to get into the final. I mean, now they're gonna have to face the Pachuca side, who are, I mean, quite scary to play against right now in this time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but still, that's still props to Herediano because I mean Toluca is still a solid team. They had, and I'm one of the biggest believers, and this is also what I like about football that they have 2 legs, and I'm one of the biggest believers that out of 2 legs, the best team advances almost always.
Hmm.
You'd have to have too much luck or like Herediano showed a lot of pride. Herediano showed a lot of pride because they player by player Toluca was better, but they came out with intensity. They came out with just ganas, just a lot of just want. They wanted to win and they won. They beat Toluca. They eliminated Toluca. And if they had the chance, or what a lot of people called an easy pathway to the quarterfinal, they took advantage of that at home. They took that 2-0 win and they went to Robin Hood, and I mean they got the tie, and that's all they really needed. They didn't
Yeah.
really need to prove anything else.
And now, I mean, moving forward, it's gonna be Pachuca Herediano. We'll see how that shapes up. I'm still thinking Pachuca will probably end up going through because, I mean, they're just so much stronger. But I mean, we'll see. And another interesting tie, probably the most popular tie. Everybody knows about these two clubs, the most popular teams in all of Mexico. America Chivas,
For
the
sure.
Super Clásico, one of the biggest games in the continent of America in itself. So I'm not even talking about North America. We're talking about all of America. This is probably one of the most popular games besides Boca River. It has to be the Super Clásico.
I mean, for sure, you have. I mean, Chivas is pursuing the most expensive was it like television contract. They were I think it was with Amazon. They don't have a precise number on it yet, but people are saying 20 million per season. There's 2 seasons played in the Liga MX per year.
Hmm.
So you're talking about 40 million per year.
That's
That's
crazy.
that's crazy. I mean, if those numbers hit, that's crazy. I'm just think about the money you could put into the transfer market.
And then correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I saw an article talking about Manchester City owners trying to go into Chivas as well.
Citigroup wants well, they still want to buy Chivas, but Amari Vergara came out saying I think it was before the Classic. I think it was what was that, Tuesday night or Wednesday night? Tuesday night, right? Amari Vergara came out saying that he won't sell Chivas for, I'll say it in his words, no vendo a Chivas ni por 1.2 billones, ni por 2 billones, ni por 20 billones, which he meant I don't sell Chivas for 1.2 billion, 2 billion, or 20 billion. Practically saying that Chivas is not for sale because it was his father's club, and his father passed away not
Hmm.
that long ago. Rest in peace. But if Citigroup ends up purchasing Chivas, I mean, there's just a lot of money you can put into play, but it looks like it's not going to happen because just the sponsorship deals that are coming in.
So you see in itself just how big. I mean, the same thing with America. I'm sure. I mean, they have. I mean, probably one of the wealthiest squads in all of America. So
Yeah,
not
for
even North
sure.
America either, but all of America. So it just the tell of these two teams is just something so historic. It transcends decades of history, and it transcends football. This is something that's cultural. It's in people's blood.
For
So
sure.
and they faced up in the early. Everybody was kind of hoping it'd be a little later in the stages, but they faced early. America trumping Chivas in the end, while they did lose in their home soil in the Azteca. I mean,
Now,
what can you
I mean, Chivas, like, they came out with effort and they came out with a lot of heart, a lot of pride. They showed why they still are a big club, even though they're going through a tough moment. They came out with players inferior to what America has. They came out with players that aren't as great as America's players. They're not as well as good as finishing as the America forwards are. Their midfield isn't as how would I say this? They're not as well
say?
well as distributing the ball as America's forwards are, and their defenders. I mean, in America, just line by line, America is superior, and Chivas came out beating America at their home. And a lot of people will say that, oh, well, America advanced. I mean, yes, they advanced, but how did they advance? They advanced losing on their home soil once again to Chivas at the Estadio Azteca. I mean, and that's where some controversy comes in because America closes the next game. Sorry, not the next game, the next key. And we'll get into that later. But I mean,
Yeah, the controversy that we're gonna corruption controversy kind of goes hand in hand. But that's what we're gonna talk about towards the end. We're gonna say that towards the end.
but I,
But
I mean, look, as if you want to paint yourself as the biggest club in North America, then I mean, you look at this and you gotta think like, how was this team able to beat me in my own home soil? How?
yeah,
But then again, you look at this Clásico and you just think, I mean, that's why it's a Clásico. That's why it's always the most matchup that's watched in North America because America beats Chivas in Chivas Stadium, and Chivas goes down to El Estadio Azteca and beats Chivas in America Stadium. And what a lot of America fans will tell you is that, yeah, but we advanced. It doesn't matter. You're playing your biggest enemy, your biggest rival. You don't want to just advance. You want to destroy them
hmm
as an athlete and as a player because not only is it like around the 16. This was seen like as a for a lot of people it was a early semifinal, early quarterfinal because this matchup comes way too early. If this was a quarterfinal or a semifinal, then it would have made much more sense for a lot of people because it just seemed too early. You still got no disrespect, but you still had Robin Hood in this competition, Eddie in this competition as well, and you just expected Chivas to get one of those teams before getting a big matchup like being against Chivas and America. But I mean, at the end results, the end result, Chivas go out. I think the better team advances, and I am glad that America advances because in this competition, like we said before, you need depth, and
yeah,
America has that depth to continue through this competition and win it. If Chivas would have advanced, it'd be so tough for them to win it. I wouldn't think they would be able to get past. Maybe if they were able to get past this quarterfinal matchup, they would have not been able to get past Pachuca, which I think America could.
I mean, I see it the other way. I think if it were to get to that instance where Pachuca plays America, which is very possible if it gets to the semifinals, I think Pachuca might get the better. But that's a whole different story. That's for a prediction video that we'll do later on. But it does have to be said with that loss, that 3-2 loss at home, does that kill the momentum going forward for America?
It could because I mean, prior to this matchup, America had 4 consecutive wins.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, I mean, yeah, the Clásico this Saturday. If America loses that, what like how would their momentum go into the Concacaf Champions League?
Yeah.
If they lose this Clásico, is it gonna hurt them or hurt them and help them? Because some losses turn into blessings in disguise, or would it just substantially just deteriorate the team? Because the
Yeah.
thing about Clásicos is that they could be make or break, and it's just hard to question. You really have to see because they are make or break games. If America wins, it could be a stepping stone to blowing past everybody, or if they lose, it could be every game just gets harder after that because you have something to prove every game.
Mm-hmm. And now
But
the team that they're going to be facing against in their semifinal matchup, no, quarterfinal matchup, is going to be the New England Revolution.
pause it, pause it.
Now, ending the discussion between America and Chivas, their next rival, of course, is the New England Revolution, who faced against Alajuelense, who are third place in Costa Rica, but they completely dismantled Alajuelense, especially that first leg. They thrashed them 4-0 at home. And this is similar territory that New England Revolution have been in before. The last time they were in this competition was 2 years ago, 2022. And in similar instances, they were up 3-0 in the first leg, but then they went away. In this case, they played against Pumas and in Mexico City. Pumas dismantled them 3-0, taking the game all the way to penalties, where Pumas eventually trumped them. And now, obviously, if you're a New England Revolution fan, you're probably thinking like, "Oh, can this happen again?" Especially because in the second leg, they they start off the game slow, and Alajuelense were the ones that took initiative, scoring within the first 3 minutes of the game. So I'm sure, like, if you're a fan, you're probably thinking like, "Oh shoot, like here we go again." Like, you're probably thinking the worst outcome possible. But overall, I think this is a New England Revolution side. Obviously, like you need to have those kind of moments, that kind of experience. That way, you can bring it into games like this and be able to put that into the game and be like, okay, this happened to us before. This is what we're gonna do now. And eventually, that's what they showed, tying the game towards the end of the match, and essentially going through 4-1.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at this team and um I was watching the game after they scored. I didn't get to see the goal for Alajuelense, but Alajuelense came out with a lot of momentum. Well, not momentum. They kind of created their own momentum with the intensity they brought to the game, and that first goal actually gives them some momentum. And I mean, it's something. How do I say it? That these Latin American teams just have at home? They have more pride. It's harder to win away against them
Mm-hmm.
for any team. And I mean, if you're a rev, you're just thinking like like I know you're not panicking, but you're just like you're thinking hopefully they play it more cautiously because these Costa Ricense teams come out with a lot of intensity, and I mean they did, and they were able to get they were able to pick apart a few plays where New England just weren't playing at their best, or maybe were distracted because of all the noise, all the fans they were making. But I mean, these teams play with a lot of heart at home, and I mean, the better team advances, no doubt. They ended up tying the game. They do get that goal back, which is, I mean, if you watch the game, it was kind of known that they were going to tie it because of just how they were coming forward. But I mean, Now, New England have a harder task at hand, but they have given up their only advantage that they had, which was closing in at home.
Yeah. And that's something we just can't we're not gonna get into just yet. We still gotta say that for the end because that's such an important topic, and I can't believe a lot of people are not talking about it the way that some outlets are, and some fans are, but it's just not a topic at all in the I mean in media whatsoever. But that's something we'll save to the end. So please stick to the end so you guys can to understand what we're talking about specifically. But something that has to be said about this Alajuelense team because of their thrashing in the first leg, I thought it was kind of crazy and something that I guess maybe it's not that crazy because we see that often throughout um Central America and like in Mexico as well. Like when you lose so in such a horrible way, in a humiliating way, like the New England Revolution did to Alajuelense, losing 4-0, they fired their coach. As soon as they got back, he found out he was fired. And they brought on head coach Alexander Guimaraes, and he's bringing in an auxiliary coach, Brian Ruiz. So if those who pay attention to Concacaf, you know who Brian Ruiz is. He's a very popular player. He's part of that squad that took Costa Rica to the quarterfinals, I believe, in 2014, where they think they lost to the Netherlands.
They lost to they did lose to the Netherlands heavily on penalties.
Yeah, so he was part
Ne-
of that legendary squad.
Netherlands knocked out uh, two of the best Concacaf teams in that year.
Yeah, no era penal. Anyways, but yeah, so they fired their head coach at the time, and now brought on this
Okay,
so, sorry, something happened to the connection. I'll try to edit that.
all right. Continue.
So, anyways, they took off. They fired um,
Your
their
coach.
head coach at the time, brought on Alexander Guimaraes, and obviously it's one of the first games for him. But I mean, you're seeing a little bit of stability. At least they were able to get a 1-1 draw against a really good Revolution.
Yeah, and I mean it's just what we were talking about right now with the Philadelphia head coach. Like we said it, anywhere else in the world, you're getting fired after that. I mean, look, this was 2 goals less, and both games were away, and he gets fired. It's just losing by that many goals, just home or away, it's just unacceptable. You weren't even in the game at any well, you weren't even in the game in the end. Like
Yeah.
losing 2-1, losing 3-2, even 3-1 can be considered like okay, like you were close. Maybe the opponent was just able to close it out towards the end, but I mean, this is what a respectable club would do, in my opinion. I know US is more about believing in the process, which a lot of European clubs do, but coming from a person who was raised Mexican, because I'm born in the US, but I mean, we go through the process with Juan Carlos Osorio, and we go through the process with Tata Martino, and I mean, we just got more of what we saw in the middle of it. So the best thing to do is to cut ties.
Yeah. If it's broken, fix it. A lot of people are like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But like
Well,
in
it's
this case,
broke.
some of these squads obviously need some fixing. A team that doesn't need fixing is Monterrey. They're undefeated in the Liga MX. Definitely one of the favorites to win the Concacaf Champions League, having won it already 5 times in the 12 instances that they participated in. What else can you say? They're I'm not gonna say that they're gonna be the eventual champions, but a lot of people are painting them to be.
I mean, like you see Monterrey and La Nómina Más Cara, the team with the highest value. They're the most expensive team in North America, and they're playing like it. They play not only are these players so great, but they play with like a Latin American type style. I wouldn't say South American because there's Mexican teams that play like this, where they just touch and move, touch and move, touch and move quickly, looking for that opportunity to go. But Monterrey takes out that how would I say that talent, the the flair. They touch it around Cincinnati when they're up 2-1. They know Cincinnati's desperate, and they kind of just move the ball instead of they waste time in the most beautiful way that there is to waste time in football, which is moving the ball,
Mhm.
and not only just moving the ball with it's moving the ball with talent, and it's something that not a lot of these teams have nowadays, and it's something that we haven't seen in Liga MX for a while now. Where there's just teams that like this Monterrey side that can put away the game when they want, practically, which is what it looks like. I mean, you see Cincinnati, and Cincinnati gets that goal in, and I'm not saying that they played bad, but they just didn't look as good as Monterrey did. They were nowhere near that level, and the score could have very well reflected a larger aggregate win for Monterrey.
Yeah, I think you have to commemorate what Cincinnati did. It is their first time in the competition ever, so they're one of the new kids on the block. But to go to Monterrey is not an easy task.
Nope. I mean, Monterrey in general. I mean, yeah, the Tigre Stadium as well, but Monterrey in general is just hard playing there. I mean, you could hear the fans just screaming, just whistling at the Cincinnati players. Just straight up, they're just straight up in
Bully,
their head,
should
bullying
have
them,
bullied, bro.
abusing them, literally abusing them mentally. And if you're a Cincinnati player and this is your first time experiencing this type of intensity, you clearly don't even know what to do.
Yeah, uh,
Monterrey, I'm not going to compare them to that 2010 Barca team, but they have kind of that fast recovery where they lose the ball, kind of try to get it back really quick. And when the times they can't, they really set themselves stable in the back. And it's just things that to a lot of people, the average fan would be like, oh, that's basic. Like every team does that. And that's not true. We go down to Philadelphia, they weren't able to do that. We go back to we're going to talk about Nashville in a second. They weren't able to do that, and it's just teams like that like little football is simple. If you're able to do the simple things with intensity, you're going to be great at it. If you want to do the if you want to skip over the simple things and do the complicated things, you're going to get exposed. And that's just what's seen. I mean, Cincinnati plays well. Don't get me wrong; they played well. Monterrey is just a better team.
yeah,
I like we were talking about two coaches that should be fired. Keep Cincinnati's coach. He's doing a great job. Monterrey is just supposed to advance in this scenario. They're just the better team.
they have
It
the
happens.
experience.
They have the experience. It happens. They have the intensity. They know how to play these competitions. I think they've won most of them in the past. What, since like 2010, coming over here, coming
Mhm.
towards 2024, they won most of their championships for this competition during that time, and they're just the bigger club. They're expected. They're supposed to pass. So keep your coach, Cincinnati. Work with your team. Continue to work. You guys are doing a great job. That's all I got to say.
Now,
I'm
someone that also is doing a really great job, ex Cincinnati player, but someone that now is playing at Monterrey. It was a big money move. I think it was like $7.5 million for the striker Brandon Vasquez, the wonder kid, and now he did it for Cincinnati for a few seasons. He was putting up those some crazy numbers, and now you're seeing him do similar numbers at the beginning of this season with Monterrey. I think he has about 7 goals in 13 games, which is commemorable.
Yeah. These Liga MX Liga MX sorry clubs were following Brandon Vasquez Brandon Vasquez. Since like 2 seasons ago, where Chivas inquire about him, they say Chivas offer, I think it was 1.5 million, and they say no, he's worth double that. He's worth 3 million. Chivas say no, he's not, and they look for another striker, and they get another striker. Well, they get Macias back,
Mhm.
and they pick up two strikers from their cantera, from their youth teams, and during this time, Brandon Basket gets sold to Monterrey for $7.5 million, which is, like 2.5 what Chivas asked. I mean, what they asked us for, and he's proved to be worth it. I mean, he's worth all those 7.5 million, and Monterrey knew that. Maybe they took a gamble on it, but it's paid off.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's paid off, and I mean it's still just the beginning of the season. I think this is going to be one of the better signings for the Liga MX, alongside Salomon Rondon too for Pachuca, who's also made a very important impact for their squad. Now we're going to see a Monterrey team facing against an Inter Miami team, and I think that's going to be really interesting because one of the first times where Messi's going to play a
Football match.
professional match. Yeah, a professional match in in Mexican soil.
Yeah, I mean, um, this Inter Miami team, they go to Nashville and they tie Nashville at Nashville after being down 2-0. And that just shows you the experience that this squad has, that this squad holds with having Messi, Suarez, and Jordi Alba there. And I mean, I look at it and I just think they're weak at the back. They're weak at the back. I just see every season in out, they're weak at the back. But damn, do they make up for it on the attack?
Yeah, of course. When you have someone like you have elite strikers in Luis Suarez, and then arguably one of the best players in the world, in
It's
Lionel
like
Messi.
it's like that Cruyff tactic where you can't attack me if I have the ball. You can't attack me if I'm scoring. You can't attack me if I'm the one like near your area.
Yeah, I mean, even Cruyff says like I'd rather win 6-5 than 1-0. So it's that kind of like mentality. It's like,
Like
well, we're gonna outscore you every game. Doesn't matter how many goals you score.
yeah, literally. But I mean, that Nashville squad is solid. I mean, we see them in the Leagues Cup, we've seen them in the league, and we've seen them in these past two performances against Miami. And you think they deserved a little bit more,
Yeah.
maybe one or two more goals, but at the end of the day, the better team wins.
There's still a new team. You have to keep that in mind. There's still a new team. This is one of their first times playing the Concacaf Champions League as well. So another new kid on the block as well as Inter Miami. But of course, Inter Miami has players of stature, players that have done the craziest things when it comes to football. They've won everything that you really can in the world of football.
But
Obviously, Nashville doesn't have those kind of players, but it's still something to applaud.
yeah, you have. I mean, you have World Cups. You have. I mean, it's everything Champions League. You have everything you could imagine desirable as a football player.
Yeah.
It's just something else. I mean, Inter Miami alone has more Ballon d'Oros than any other club in the world.
Now, moving forward, how does this set up that Monterrey versus Inter Miami clash?
It could go one or two ways. It could be a high scoring game like everybody well not everybody most people expect it to be, or it could really be just Monterrey being able to score and having the same stability that we've seen at the back line. But you come to the back line and you think, can these players guard Messi? Well, probably not. But why would you
Now,
need to? Why would you
ho-
need to?
I'm gonna hold you right there because it's very probable that Messi's probably not gonna play at least
The
one
first,
of the legs,
the
first
first
leg, 'cause he is injured.
Well, let's say Messi is playing, which is what you'd expect for a player of this importance in a championship tournament that it is this that would be able to give you the how would I say that qualifies you to the Club World Cup. Let's say
Yeah,
he does take it. Monterrey is gonna have to do a damn good job at cutting off that pass to the forwards, like that midfield. They're gonna need to own that midfield and not let anything come through there. That way they force Miami to resort to long ball, which I mean we've seen when Messi's teams resort to long ball, it just doesn't work out.
yeah,
And then I mean, there's only so much you could say because at the end of the day, having these players like Suarez and Messi, it's just it could run away with Inter Miami, maybe even winning like a 6-5 aggregate, or Monterrey winning like 7-5 aggregate, or it could
I
be
don't.
anything.
And the thing is with this kind of matchup, I don't think it'll be so dramatic. I think these are going to be tighter games than a lot of people expect them to be. But I think it does make for an interesting watch.
There's a lot of Liga MX players. I mean, Liga MX players. Sorry, Liga MX fans that are saying that, oh well, Monterrey is gonna thrash Inter Miami, and oh, I'd say I don't know. I'd say it's harder than you think it would be. But one
Mhm.
thing I will say is that it's more probable that Monterrey thrash Inter Miami than Inter Miami thrash Monterrey,
Yeah.
just because defensively Inter Miami lacks, just they just lack, I don't, stability in general. They're a great offensive team. I think they may be one of the top three offensive teams in North America, but they just lack stability at the back. And if Monterrey can find those holes quick, I just don't see how Inter Miami could advance.
Yeah. Well, that kind of wraps up the uh segment pretty much for all these teams. Now we're going to see how it shapes up and going into the quarters and then moving forward to semis and then the final, which are all things that we're going to be talking about as we advance. I think for the next video, I think we should be giving our predictions, or do you think we should do that right now?
I mean, we could hop into it, but let's just finish up this last part about Gillette Stadium.
So the America versus New England Revolution game. This game is, I think it's controversial to us. Of course, in the media, I don't think it's being highlighted as much as we think it should be, but it is important that we bring it up because it's like, I don't know. Go for it.
I mean, okay, so this is what the report was, that on April 13th there will be an event taking place at Gillette Stadium. Due to this, they have seceded the second home leg to America, letting them have the second leg in America's house, giving up second leg home field advantage against what many people consider the best team on the continent, against what probably everybody in North America would think to be the hardest stadium to win away at.
Hmm.
So this is just what New England have succeeded. They literally gave them the second leg for what it
Do you know
appears to, for an event on April 13th,
do you know what event it was going to be for?
I'm not sure. Some people were saying that like a motorcycle event or like a monster truck event, something like that.
Mhm.
And I mean, April 13th, the game would be April 9th. I mean, you got the 10th, 11th, the 12th to prepare. I mean, to prepare for that after the game takes place.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people are saying, I mean, all the Red fans are yelling corruption. They're just saying that their owner went behind them and did a money grab because they feel that their owner sold them out. And they argue this because, I mean, the quarterfinal dates were not chosen like, oh, you're gonna play this day, but they're chosen like you're gonna play one of these 2 days. And if you're a club that's in the competition, you're like, oh well, we wouldn't be able to schedule this day or this day because we could possibly reach these quarterfinals.
Hmm.
And I mean, this bracket came out like way before this thing was even scheduled. So the only way that I think, or my reasoning would be, that if they scheduled this was because they wouldn't think it would have been a problem. And I mean, you read these articles and like you just think for them to schedule on the 13th, they had to either think it wouldn't be a problem, or a lot of people are just saying that this just simply was an excuse to let America have the second leg home game, which is what Concacaf would prefer either way.
That's hot right there. That's where we get in uncharted territories because you really don't know. But it is something definitely that someone should look into. Obviously, we're bringing it to the attention because it's not being talked about.
I mean,
But
just think about it in your standpoint, let's say you were the owner of New England Revolution, right? Correct. This for the viewer at home as well. Think, put yourself in that position right now, right? You have what they argue to be the strongest team on this continent. You have that home game on the second leg. You're thinking, well, I can't because the stadium told me I can't. Why would you give it to your rivals? Why would you give it to the person that you're facing off? You just say, oh, let's just switch the legs. Why wouldn't you just apply to, okay, well, we'll play for in another MLS stadium,
Yeah, at a neutral venue.
at a neutral venue at least, so you could have some sort of advantage.
Hmm.
Maybe even in MetLife Stadium or another stadium, just that's possible, that doesn't have a game that day, because this game would be during the week, and this event is taking place during the weekend. And a lot of people are yelling that Azcárraga does it again. Azcárraga, he puts the money up and people just follow. And there's just been too many coincidences where I could say I doubt that. I honestly start to believe it at this point, because what team in their right mind would give up their only advantage that they had over America?
Hmm.
The only card they had over them, they just folded.
Right into their hands. That's crazy to me. I don't know, but obviously the story will probably develop as, I mean, there's more attention brought up to it. I think that's the final that everybody would want to see. If Inter Miami makes it all the way on their side of the bracket, and then America make it all the way on their side of the bracket, that's going to be obviously bring so much attention throughout all of America, and not only America. You're talking about people in Europe that are tuning in just to watch Messi. So I don't know. That's something that we're gonna have to keep on looking into. But overall, that this Concacaf has given us a lot to talk about. The Champions League has given us a lot to talk about, and it's something that we're going to keep covering. Let us know what you guys think. Thank you to you, the viewer, the listener. Thank you again, Tomas, for hopping on, for always helping me out. I appreciate you.
This will
And
be
support your small creators. Follow, like, subscribe, share, comment, whatever it is. Any form of anything would help. Pretty much all of the above helps. And we are CHARLA Football. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one where we give our predictions, and we'll keep following up with more football.